Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma. This is Kisma, and we're so excited to bring to you a series which is called Your Attitude Adjustment. Now, I'm not here to say that you've got a bad attitude or a wrong attitude, but we're going to bring you some tips and tools about how to create an attitude that really creates an amazing life. Because at the end of the day, as you are going to find out in this episode, your life is your attitude. Hello and welcome to Illumination Podcast with Nick and Kisma, bringing you ancient wisdom for modern day success so that you can have the mindset to get your life and business set.
As always, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to the podcast, take a quick second to hit the subscribe button in iTunes, SoundCloud, or Stitcher. If you want to get the inside info for this and every episode, as well as some free gifts, go to illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. And now let's dive in to get your mindset for your life and business set.
Well, hello there, Nick.
Hello there, Kisma.
Coming to you from Common Grounds in Carlsbad, California. How much do we love this place?
I love it a lot.
Yeah, let's give them a shout out. I don't know if anyone listens to our podcast here, but you people better. But anyways, I do love it.
Yeah, kombucha on tap.
Kombucha on tap. We're here recording the series. Like we have this special day mapped out to like just go and go and go. And there's hardly anyone here except the girls in the back kind of making some noise.
This is a different approach for us to to have a series.
Yeah, and this was your idea. What brought that about?
Well, when I think about it, a couple different things, with our busy lives, fitting in a podcast every week and keeping like a weekly schedule seems like such a great idea and so easy. Like, we'll sit down and we'll do the podcast and it's like such a simple thing. But in practice, with the way that our lives are structured, it can actually be quite a bit more challenging than one would think.
Yeah, especially with the client schedule and changes and travels and trainings and all these things we're doing.
All these different things. And so sitting down to do this together is not always the easiest thing that for us in our lives. And so we wanted to sit down and just do just schedule a day for it, and get it, get a month's worth done. And then when we started to think about that, I thought, I love series, I love TV series, a good TV series, and they do it in seasons. And it's so cool and it's like, a topic or a story in a show, unfolds over a season and, it kind of takes you on a journey.
Kind of like Dragnet.
And I thought, kind of like that. Well, yeah, I guess.
Poldark. Anyone watch Poldark?
Poldark, yeah. I can't wait till season 3. We have the Crown to go through. Yeah, we haven't
season 2.
We haven't started season 2 yet. Season 1 was phenomenal. I can't wait. But either way, I thought, what a great idea to actually have like a little mini season, so it's like a little, like an Olive Kitteridge, remember that? It was like 4 episodes. It was great. But I love the idea of like a little mini series around a specific topic. And I think that will, it'll be fun for us. We'll get to dive into some different layers and approach some different topics from different angles and tell some stories in the process. So thus the idea of the series.
And we came up with attitude because we thought, what about it? Like kicking off the new year, 2018, here we are just looking a few days ahead. And as most of you, if you've listened to Illumination podcasts before, we're always about this teaching that life is a series of experiences, and the quality of your experiences will determine the quality of your life. It's that simple and it's that complex.
Yeah, it really is.
And I
simple,
say that,
but not easy.
No, I don't want to go with it's hard, but it's simple and it's complex because sometimes experiences are very clear and sometimes the experiences are very complex, but the human has such an ability to shift and direct their attitude in a way that they can change any experience that they're going through.
Right. And to me, attitude was something that spoke beyond mindset. I think mindsets.
Yeah, mindsets we're talking about mindset because that's all I do all day long.
Right,
mindset.
And it's such a cool word, and it really is something specific. And to me, I was sharing with Kisma about that is how I feel that an attitude is something that kind of encompasses the entire energetic container.
Yeah.
And so it really is. And holding a consistent attitude of positivity, productivity, those kinds of things, loving kindness, holding an attitude of that, really holding a stance of that is not always again, not always the easiest thing in the world. There's, like you said, it's complex. There's a lot of nuances to it and things that affect our attitude. But at the end of the day, like you so rightly said, it's your attitude, your attitude that really makes the difference. And so, being the clever one that I am, I thought attitude adjustment.
I'll look and see who needs an attitude adjustment. But no, let's kick it out there. So mindset, for anybody that's listening, that's a student or a client of mine, I always say mindset is the tip of the iceberg, and there's a foundation below it and there's something above it. And attitude is a great expression, like Nick said, to talk about that energetic container of your entire being, right? Like a 360 degree view of how you're feeling, how you're seeing, like how do you walk, how do you talk, how are you seeing the world and the people in your world, and how are you relating to them? And when one can begin to see their attitude, then you decide, where do I desire to shift it? Number one, because you'll have to have a desire to shift it before you do. And what does it look like to shift?
So one of the things I think that is most obvious around attitude is it positive or negative?
Is it positive or is it negative?
Are you a negative, negative Nelly, a negative Ned, are you a positive person? And what I think is really interesting about this is that different people are charged differently.
They are. They have a different, what we call polarity.
And one of the things that we've done is we've made negativity so wrong. That, and you see this, I think, in the United States in particular, where, we're typically a more positively charged. Like if you saw somebody who was really negative here, like they really stick out like a sore thumb. And in other areas of the world, they might not stand out so much. It's more of a normal thing. But we've really made negativity a wrong thing. And some people are just they're more bent that way. And what I mean by that is really they see and express what is not working first.
Exactly.
As opposed to somebody who's more positively charged, who sees and expresses what's working first. And when you skew too far to one side of either of those, you're going to be out of that zone of objectivity.
Right.
You can get super Pollyanna, and that's not going to help you, because it's super easy to get blindsided. Or you can get stuck in the negative side and nothing's working, and that will really, really deplete your energetic container. And it will also, your mind will be creating problems all over the place. And that's a different kind of a challenge.
Right.
And rather than making it wrong or right, so something that I think is really interesting is like when somebody starts to get a little bit negative, the positive person will generally try to shut that down
right away.
Right. You're being so negative. Stop it. You just need to be more positive.
Yeah.
You just need to be more positive. Think positive, think good thoughts. And like, okay, like that's nice. I truly appreciate it. Like that's cool. And that can be really hard for some people.
Yes.
So there's this process of letting a person see and express the way that they see it and express it first. And what's surprising is that most often, then they will naturally come around to the other side of that. They just happen to start on one side first.
So this is really, I love this. They happen to start on one side. And think about all the people, some of you out there might be troubleshooters, you might be fixers. We've talked about the soul energies on this podcast, and some people are what we call Syrians, where they just can come in and they just see everything that isn't working that needs to be fixed. And this is a gift. This is really a gift. Our world would not survive if we didn't have humans that could see what is not working right away and go in and fix it. When it becomes not productive and when it diminishes or depletes one's energetic field or makes people run from you is when it comes from a selfish position. Because then that selfish position means that ability to see what is not working goes towards that person. So they end up seeing what they don't have. They wonder why things are happening to them and not for them. And it almost becomes like this victim attitude.
An attitude of victimization. Yeah.
And that's heavy and that's depleting. And it's because there's an attachment to that selfishness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say would be a great way to pivot out of the selfishness and into being able to just like you said, with more objectivity, express and see and move beyond that to adjusting and fixing things?
Well, I think on the one hand, there's the opportunity to just recognize when you're in that. You know, if life's feeling heavy, closed off, or any of those things that you just described, as far as like feeling, you know, life is happening to you, or things are happening to you, or it's you against the world, or I'm doing it all, you know, like getting into that real sense of like doership. It's not ownership. It's like really like, I'm the one, you know, that's all really self-centric.
It is.
And, it's not to say that there's not a place for that, but it is to say that when that takes over, your life will shrink.
Exactly.
And you won't really have access to the intuitive capabilities and just the, you know, the higher kind of message and guidance that you receive all the time, because you've basically taken all the reins there. And that's probably going to be a little heavy, you know, a little bit of a challenge. So number one is just kind of recognizing when you're starting to get into that and bring yourself back to, you know, the biggest hack for me is always like an attitude of gratitude.
Totally. The gratitude is such a soothing emotion.
It's soothing emotion, but what it also does is really a recognition that there are just so many helping hands, and it takes us out of that small circle of self-centric thinking. So you see like, oh yeah, there are 1,000 helping hands, more, you know, countless really helping hands in everything that I do. We all stand on the shoulders of giants, so to speak. And also, and even standing on the shoulders of giants, you know, we still bow to the cosmic forces that hold us here.
Oh, I love those cosmic forces.
You know, so we're this little tiny speck in between. And that sense of humility and gratitude for this life is really important to jar out of that. So that's really my biggest thing. What I think is interesting is some of the things that trigger that in people's lives.
Such as?
Well, tragedy is one of them.
It's difficult.
Yeah, you see it again and again. So Scrooge, right?
Oh, yeah.
Ebenezer Scrooge he's what jarred him out of it. He started to really take a good look at his life and see how he was living. And then what, you know, that talk about an attitude adjustment.
Right.
You know, he goes through the past and all these missed moments and some regret. He goes through the present and all the things that are falling apart right before his eyes that he doesn't even see.
Right.
And then he goes into the future, into, you know, the dystopian future of all the sadness and the loneliness that he's in the process of creating. And he comes out of it and is like a new person. He's a new human at the end of it.
He really is a new human because a new attitude created a new human.
Exactly. The new attitude created a new human. And that's what's really beautiful about that story.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's where it's so easy to be blinded by in the present to what we're actually creating.
Yes. Agreed.
You know, you have a rough day. Okay. A lot of people have a rough day. You have 2 rough days. You have 3 rough days. Well, before you know it, you have a rough month. You know, and that when that starts to pile up, that will drain energy.
Right.
And sooner or later, that will affect your physiology.
For sure.
In a more permanent way.
I mean, we all know that. Like by now, most doctors' visits are due to stress-induced illness or stress-induced illness.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. And so over time, that can really build up and create some interesting things. So it is important. You know?
Yeah.
So that's one of them. That or that's not really so much tragedy. Like that was just a real shocker of him looking at it. But if you look at like a tragic event where somebody's living their life a certain way and then they lose somebody or something very, very dear to them.
Or they lose almost everything and then they realize I still have my life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not that we want that to be happening to people, but it is a shocker. It's like when we begin to see what's really real. What's our truth? What's our meaning? What's important in life? And that kind of comeback can be extraordinary. And I think too, you know, the other piece, Nick, is like when someone can determine what they can do for someone else, that definitely helps the attitude adjustment. Like if any of you out there listen, you find yourself getting into that, what I don't have, poor me, life is hard, Go and do something for someone else. Give something. It doesn't have to be huge, but like go light up a life. And it just sort of reignites that purpose in the heart.
Mm-hmm. And you look for those little opportunities, lots of people have really different attitudes about giving to the needy when people are out on a street corner or something like that. They have really different ideas about whether you're supposed to do it or you're not supposed to do it. At the end of the day, it's like if you feel called to do that, then do it. Like don't make it right or wrong.
Yeah,
it's like if you get the hit, then give. Like there's nothing wrong with giving. And the beautiful part is just letting go once you've done that.
Exactly.
Great.
You can't give and wish you didn't give. No, buzzer.
Or give and want them to be a certain way because you give. It's not like that. It's give, cut the cords next. It's not your business. You give for the sake of giving.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it. So, jarring yourself out of that, I think is, giving is such a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Finding is something that you can be of service.
And I think too, for everyone listening, is like when you get clear on what you actually desire your life to be, you can define the perception that is actually required in your experiences. And it doesn't mean, we'll get back to that like positive or negative polarity. It doesn't mean that you have to be different. We're going to talk about that more through this series of how you know what kind of vehicle you're really driving or living in. But there definitely is that question. It's like, what do I want my experiences to be like? Like, do I want to leave the end of the day and feel drained? Or do I want to leave the end of the day and feel like I've accomplished something? And I believe that oftentimes when we write out how it is we want to see our life, live our life, examine our life, then we can get super clear on the perception needed towards experiences each and every day.
Right. Yeah. It reminds me of a story. I was out surfing one day and stepped on a stingray.
Oh, you did?
I did. I got stung kind of right between the big toe and the second toe. And I thought it would be okay for a second. I was like, it was like a really bad bee sting for anybody who's wondering.
Did you see the stingray?
Oh, no, I couldn't.
Thank God.
Yeah, I didn't see it. But it's, it stung me and I definitely felt it right away. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. So I started to paddle back out and then I noticed the blood on my board and I thought, oh, that's probably not good. So I just decided to go in and it became quite painful. Like it really does get pretty. It's like a really, really bad bee sting. And so I get home and, just hurting a bit and also kind of disappointed, because I was out surfing and I had plenty of more time to be surfing and I'm not surfing and I'm at home. But one of the things that you can do for when you get stung by a stingray is put real hot water on it, like as hot as you can stand it. And it's really, really helps the sting to go away. So there I am, I'm sitting at home. I think I still had my wetsuit on and I got my foot in the bathtub and I'm just like, okay, I'm just sitting here putting some hot water on it. And I got a phone call and it was from a client and I just picked it up. I didn't have the number in my phone, so I didn't know who I was, but I was like, all right, well, I'll just pick it up. And sure enough, she's got something going on and we start to have this conversation. And before I know it, I'm focused on, helping her and doing whatever I can. And before I knew it, I was just not even aware of the pain and the pain in my foot's gone and I'm feeling like way, way better. So what a, quick transformation from being kind of down and bummed out and in physical pain to, I'm good to go. All right, cool. I go put a little salve on that and do my wavy hand and I think we'll be good. And it was
amazing.
Good.
Yeah. That's a great story. Attitude adjustment.
So it draws you out of it,
Totally. Have you ever had a point in time where you've not adjusted your attitude? Stayed in a little need to be right.
You're so funny.
I know.
You're just so entertaining.
I know.
Well, I think we've all had those.
Moi?
We've all had those times where you just decide to be part of the problem.
Let's break down what the need to be right means for our listeners, because this is definitely the quicksand of non-attitude adjustment. When we are digging our heels in, the need to be right, there will be no attitude adjustment. You will go deeper and deeper into the sinkhole.
Yeah. Well, we did a whole episode on the need to be right, but essentially what that is just a decision to stay exactly where you're at
Yeah.
and justify all the reasons that you're feeling and thinking the way that you're feeling
and continue
thinking.
to manifest all the things needed to stay in that exact space. That's how deep it can go in the attitude and creating the experience of life.
Yeah.
I mean,
I saw it put really well by Siobhan when she was talking about the need to be right one time, and she was like, it's the 6-figure problem that nobody thinks they have. No, really, because it costs
really
you
is.
so much money.
So much money, so much energy, costs you so much happiness because this need to be right will, it's like focusing on what you don't have or focusing on, I'm so right that life is going to be hard, or I'm so right that building a business is going to be hard. Well, guess what? You will manifest all of these things around you and people around you that make building a business hard.
Yeah.
And this is not saying that we go, like you mentioned earlier, Nick, this is not saying we're going to go into that extreme opposite of the positive sort of Pollyanna, everything's perfect. But when one can adjust the attitude and say, right, well, what are 3 things that actually did go right today? The brain shifts and it begins to see more of what is actually going right as to what is going, quote unquote, wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. And I want to add one layer onto what you just said, is like manifesting the people, these certain types of people around you. And I've found it's not even always the people, it's what you're bringing out in those people.
Absolutely.
Right? So you could have all the right people,
Absolutely.
but if you're stuck in your need to be right, their gifts aren't going to be able to express. You're going to have a tough time communicating with them, and everybody's going to have a tough time working together and getting everything to really shine.
It's your belief is your truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you can take a really wonderful person, and then all of a sudden they're the wrong person just because of your own need to be right.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
The trickiest part around that is that it's a blind spot.
It's a total blind spot.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to see when you're getting into that.
Yeah.
So it's that willingness, I think, to just always look at ourselves and examine ourselves and examine our thinking processes from different angles.
There's a great quote by Goethe. Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you will help them become what they are capable of becoming. Isn't that great?
Yeah,
Treat people as if they were what they ought to be, and you will help them become what they are capable of becoming. And I think that goes for like treat ourselves what we ought to be.
Yeah.
Like with that attitude, like everything's coming back around. The attitude that we send out is going to come back around.
Yeah.
It's that boomerang. It's that karmic effect. So treat others as they ought to be, treat ourselves as we ought to be, and we will all become capable.
Well, it's super easy to get into the justification of feeling and being a certain way.
Yeah.
There's enough, like life is hard enough in certain ways for people. Like, it's not hard to make life hard. Let me put it that way. I think
challenging.
That's a better way to put it.
Challenging.
Well, no, but in this specific context, it's really about like, it's not hard to make life hard. There's no shortage of things that you can look at when you're like, yeah, that's working against me, or that's really tough. Or, our government system is corrupt and that's causing problems, or there's never seems to be enough money. We're always short on resources. I'm having a tough time communicating. I'm stuck in there's no shortage of things to look for that.
Right.
And when you look at it, or just tragic things that happen in everybody's life, loss and destruction and
fires.
Yeah. Or totally. Yeah. Just acts of nature, or just really, really unexpected things that really throw you spinning. There's just, it's so easy to justify that and to say, well, of course I'm feeling this way because X, Y, and Z happened. And I've heard that so many people that live in their childhood, it's like they've gotten that one little piece of personal growth, that was like, oh, these things occur in your childhood and yada, yada, yada. And that's great. But then they never get past it. And it's always like, well, my parents had a weird conversation about money, so I'm always broke.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. Well, when are you going to change that?
Yeah. When are you going to cut the cords to that?
When would now be a good time to really shift that?
Yeah.
And so what I mean to say is that there really is no shortage. If you're looking for those things, you'll find them all over the place to justify negative feelings and negative emotions and negative attitudes and just negative results in your life.
As well.
That's what I was just going to say.
I hope you're going to continue this. Stop there.
The flip side of that is that it is actually just as easy to
Totally.
flip the coin.
Totally.
You
Look
just
at the moon, look at the
turn the
sun,
coin.
look at the stars, look at the flowers, notice the snow, like just look at nature.
Right. Because you're a human being.
Right.
And you have this beautiful mind and
Right.
emotions and this amazing physical body and all this amazing human technology.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do anything with it. Like
Exactly.
it's just, we haven't even tapped, what we can do with that. And so shifting an attitude and looking at something from a different perspective is not a stretch at all.
Right.
But it's a choice that has to
It's
be made.
a choice. And one of the things that has always inspired me is one of those great higher spiritual teachings that I know we've heard Swami Parthasarathy say again and again and again is when a human decides to ask the question, is this all there is? Not from a place of not having enough, but from a place of, I believe there's something more. I believe, like, what is this energy? What is this existence? What is this God, universe, spirit, whatever your word is, that allows me to actually see, to actually speak, to walk, to think, to talk, like all of that. When we ask the question, what is this unique ultimate energy that allows it? All of a sudden, the attitude is, for me anyways, I'm just in wonderment.
Yeah.
It's like just, oh my gosh, like the gifts we've been given. Incredible. And if ever, like you really need to just pivot, ask that question. Start to contemplate what it is that allows us all to just be.
Yeah. And I want to say that I think when somebody asks the question, even from how you said it, is this all there is? This job, this partner, this family, like whatever it is that they're just feeling like kind of closed in. I think that's a valid question too. I think it's a really valid question because that's, if that's where you're at and you're looking around asking that question, that can really open you up to some different things.
Exactly.
Think like just like you just said, like there's all this amazing potential that we have in our lives. For me, I like the mystery of it.
Right.
That we've got like human beings have been on the planet for God knows how long, and we still don't really know where that all started.
Yeah.
We
don't really know.
They don't really know the nature of consciousness.
Yeah.
And the real nature of being. You think about all the thoughts that you have and where did all those, if you really want to trace those thoughts back to their source, what's that?
Yeah. Right.
And it just seems to flow endlessly.
Energy.
So for me, it's like the mystery, getting kind of lost in that mystery of, what the heck,
contemplation.
Man? Like this human experience is freaking wild. And
the human experience is freaking wild. And you are the driver of your car. It's just a slight pivot in one direction or the other that will change. Perception is key. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is. So what can we leave our listeners with? A couple of tips for that pivot, that perception switch. I mean, for me, it's like the question is, do you want to pivot your attitude?
Yeah.
Is that even something you want to do? I mean, there's plenty of people that are just like, nope, either I'm good. Some people, those of you that are feeling like it's in a negative spot, ask the question of like, what are you getting from that, from staying there? And if you really want to stay there.
Yeah. That's the most important part is like, are you happy?
Right.
Are you happy right now?
Is there peace in your mind or is there a whole bunch of noise?
Yeah. And if you're not, experiencing some level of happiness or peace,
joy,
yeah. And spending a lot of time in the other, then you probably want to just decide whether or not you want to be there.
Stay there or pivot. Exactly.
Always a good place to start. Is this really what I want to be creating with my life?
Right.
And then beyond that, I think there's always the opportunity, like if you're the sort of person that just only sees the positive in thing, that's a beautiful thing. And you can also ask yourself, okay, well, what could I improve? What could be improved? If you're a person who really sees the negative first, is, not letting yourself dwell in that area for too long, but then asking, okay, well, wait a second, what's really working here? And that, flipping and giving yourself the opportunity. Sometimes you have to retrain your mind. Like if you've been in negative patterns for a really long time, lack, limitation, those sorts of things, you might need to retrain yourself. And so having that back in the back of your mind to ask that question sooner rather than later will ensure that you get back towards neutral.
Right.
It's not about being necessarily dead center.
But the neutral provides what? That level of objectivity.
Right.
And when we're neutral, it's more about seeing what is working, what isn't working at the same time with just an emphasis like this pause of being available and willing to experience everything and decide which way you're going to go. And the objectivity in the neutral place is when we are way less affected by the happenings of life.
Yeah.
And when we're let's face it, when we're less affected by the world, our experience, to me anyways, is more profound and more elevated.
Yeah, that's very true. It really is an opportunity to look. I like how you said that, being available to a different perspective, available to something different.
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting part that I want to kind of, as we wrap this one up, is being available. It's like, that's the prerequisite for change.
Absolutely. One cannot have change if they're not available to it.
If you're not available to a solution, then you can be sure that you will be stuck in your problem for a long, long time.
Right.
But once you become available to a solution, just available to the idea that there's a solution, then you've got a whole different conversation on your hands.
Totally.
And that's really big, because if you want to shift something in your life and you're just stuck in that place of like, well, this is just the way it is. I've tried a million different times in a million different ways, and I haven't been able to change this thing. Well, if that's a place where a lot of people will justify themselves closing down to solution.
Yeah.
And they'll say no when the solution's sitting right in front of them. The answer's right in front of you. It's a program, or it's a coach, or it's a whatever that you need is right there, and you'll say no to it because of all the past.
Right.
And that's not being available to the solution.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting. And that's a really important part of the attitude. Like you said, I just love that word, being available to it, like having an attitude of being available.
There we go, everyone.
Man.
Be available, because every problem is driven by its unfolding solution. We just got to be available to it.
True story. Yeah. So staying available. Yeah. The attitude of availability. And it really opens you up to all the wonder and amazingness that is the human experience.
Totally.
It's just, human experience is such a trip, and it's just so cool.
Great. And at the end of the day, everyone, our life is made up of a series of experiences, and the quality of those experiences are really determined by the quality of our perception, our ability to see what is working, perhaps what isn't working, but just to take it a few notches higher, on that ladder of life. And then the quality of our experiences will determine the quality of our life.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is a way to tell, there's a way to tell where, like, are you negatively charged? Are you positively charged? There's a tool for that.
Which we'll be talking about in a few episodes.
Yeah, we'll bring that up. But to just tuck that back in there, we're not leaving you out there to dry with nothing. The tips will help and get you going. But once you kind of know where you stand on that and get some more understanding of that, it really helps you to utilize your own disposition in a much more powerful way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. We'd love to hear from you. Was this helpful? What's your attitude? What about your attitude are you willing or desiring to adjust? Email us, info@sourcemovement.com. Share this episode with anybody that you think might enjoy it. And we are so grateful for you here listening, and wishing you much peace and a very prosperous, happy attitude.
Namaste.
Hey, thanks for jamming with us today. And if you enjoy Illumination Podcast, please go ahead and share it with someone you love. Give us a rating, review, download our podcast. And remember, you can find us at illuminationacademy.net/podcasts. Talk to you soon. Namaste.